this is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of X-Men First Class, the 2011 film that took the franchise back to the past, if that makes sense, and I think really rejuvenated the series as a whole, because I feel like before this, they had made a couple of movies that frankly sucked. There were a couple decent elements in each of those films, but for the most part were not very good. And this movie was a return to form, and actually to this day, in my opinion, is one or two in the franchise being one of the best movies. Because I think this movie epitomizes what I love about the X-Men franchise, between the allegories to racism, the brotherhood, the team building, the relationships, the awesome powers on screen. I mean, it really, really has it all. Speaking of the strengths of this film, I think one of the major ones is the cast. And I'm going to start off by talking about Jennifer Lawrence, who I think is actually quite good in this film, which is a departure from her performances in the later X-Men movies, especially Apocalypse, where I felt like she was kind of sleepwalking through it and didn't feel like she really cared to be there, and she's supposed to be in the next X-Men movie, from what I've heard, and I hope she gets a lot more invested in it, like she was here, because I thought, as somebody who seemed to be actually interested in playing the role of Mystique, did a fantastic job. I thought her physicality was great, the fighting sequences, as well as the drama of the character was very, very compelling. I thought she was great. I think the highlight from the acting perspective was the performances of James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender, not because they outdid Jennifer Lawrence or anybody else necessarily, but because the two of them seem to have such a sincere chemistry on film. You can really tell that they seem to be buddies in real life, because it really transfers perfectly to the film, and really, really works for the story, especially when they come at odds, and this feeling where they legitimately care for one another, and to be at odds with one another is painful for them. I think it all really perfectly plays into it, and I thought that the performances as the characters individually, when they worked together, were really, really on point. I thought James McAvoy had this really kind of fatherly tone to him, and this wisdom to him, despite not being necessarily very old, whereas Michael Fassbender had this inner rage, and I loved all the sequences of him getting revenge on Nazis. I thought that was fan-freaking-tastic. I thought Moira McTaggart was in this movie. I thought she was solid, if unremarkable. Didn't really blow me away, but, I thought she was pretty good. And then you had Nicholas Hoult as Holt, I think it is, as Beast. I thought he was a fantastic Beast. I thought that the makeup that they did for him, or the digital effect, or combination of the two, I'm sure, was a little bit off. It didn't necessarily look like the Beast that I've ever known, but also I thought it looked pretty cool on film, so that worked. But I think when you look at the character that was put together, like, physically on film, that looks the coolest in this movie, it's Azazel. Even though I don't think he did very much, it was a little bit of a wasted character. It was really cool to see him, and to see how he had a very similar vibe to Nightcrawler, but it's other than being evil. I think that when you're talking about the evil characters, I thought Kevin Bacon and Sebastian Shaw just knocked this right out of the park. I thought he just seemed so evil, but not cartoonishly evil. Like he wasn't necessarily twisting his mustache and cackling to himself, but he was pretty close to that. And I think it really, really worked for this film. You really hated him, and it just wanted to see him get his just desserts, and that was very, very effective for the film. I think one of the down parts of this film for me was the way that they dealt with some of the students that they brought in. They gave Banshee and Havoc a decent amount of time on screen, but not nearly enough for characters that I've grown up loving so much. I mean, Banshee was always one of my favorites, and then going past this film, they didn't really do that much with him whatsoever, if anything, really. And I thought Havoc was interesting, and the fact that they showed him really, they did an effective job of really showing both of them getting a handling on their powers, but I thought the way that they showed Havoc's powers was inconsistent with what I've known, but really, really cool, so it was perfectly fine by me. But I would like to see them have more character and more development. I thought Zoe Kravitz as, what is it, Angela Salvatore or something like that. Sorry, I'm looking it up. She's a newer character, Angel Salvador. She's a character that showed up in the comics after I stopped reading, so I had to look that up for a second. But I thought she was very, very compelling. She has a moment where she's a stripper in the introduction to the character, and she really oozed that sexuality, but also came off as somebody that seemed like she would perfectly fit in the world of the X-Men when she unveiled her wings. I loved the like authority with which she did it, and she seemed like somebody who was not ashamed of anything about herself, and was a very powerful character, even though they didn't really necessarily use her to that full effect, which I would have liked to have seen more, because I thought the way they set up the character was awesome, but they didn't necessarily pay it off for me. And speaking of characters that they set up fantastically but did not pay at all, this is a spoiler, so it's not a major one, it's for a minor character, but the way that they handled Darwin just drove me nuts. They set him up as this character whose ability was to basically adapt to any given situation. So the character in the comics and the way they set him up in the movie would be, if you threw him up in the vacuum of space, he would no longer need oxygen. If he was under the water, all of a sudden he developed gills. I mean, basically his mutant power was to adapt, and they set that up. And they did a really good job of setting it up by having him duck his head in some water, and then immediately he got killed by basically a fireball. I was like, what? No, that would not kill Darwin. No. And they did the way they set up the character. It was like, it's not. I'm not just saying that as like a guy who is aware of the comic character, because I haven't really read the comic character, because I don't really read comics that much anymore. So I don't really have that affection with him going back. But I'm aware of who the character is, and I'm aware of how they set him up in the movie, and that's not no. And finally, the character that I'll address that I thought was the big disappointment of this film was the White Queen. I thought that January Jones did a pretty piss poor performance in this film. I thought she just really wasn't very compelling, and the character of the White Queen is this extremely powerful woman that is very, very self-actualized and 100% knows who she is, and it just oozes confidence and sexuality and authority and has power over everybody around her, no matter how powerful you think that person is, and just they'd have to break free of her control. She's somebody who you really want to reckon with. And the way that they used her in this movie, first off, the way she was written, she was kind of like this backup character to Sebastian Shaw, who didn't really have much effect on the story too much, other than moving a couple plot points forward. That was a huge disappointment to me, because in my ideal world, she'd be kind of using Sebastian Shaw to move her pawns on the chessboard forward, not the other way around. And then I just thought that the January Jones performance was very one note and bland, and seemed very disinterested, and just I thought she was maybe going for a aura of confidence, but instead it just came off as just meh. And I will say there was one scene with her, though, that I think was fantastic, where they show her in prison and they ask her about the upcoming war, and she said something to the effect of that she wouldn't call it a war because that implies that there's two equal sides, which I thought was just absolutely fantastic. So those are my thoughts on the film. Overall, the story I thought was fantastic, and the film I absolutely love, and I just think it's a great time at the movie. So other than that, let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit that like button, hit that share button. It'll make it much more likely that other people will come and check out this video, which is something I absolutely adore, because I love talking to people about film. Speaking of which, if you're new here or you just haven't done it yet, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. I'll let you know when I put out a new video. You can come and let me know what you think. Other than that, have yourself a good day.